Hare Krishna. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are extremely grateful to have His Holiness Jayadvat Swami Maharaj with us today, sharing his wisdom for the pleasure of Shri Shri Radha Molidhar, Gaura Chandra, and all the assembled devotees. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for joining us and giving the class this morning. You can take over now, Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. We will chant something. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari. Yashodanandana Praja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Praja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Panuman Supri Prajakacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai. Navadip Tham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading Srimad Bhagavatam 9:10:55. Prem nanu vritya shilena prashraya vanata sati piya hriya chabhavagya bhartu sitaharan manaha. Word for word meanings. Premna anuvritya, because of service, rendered to the husband with love and faith. Shilena, by such good character. Prashraya Avanata, always very submissive and ready to satisfy the husband. Sati, chaste. Piya, by being afraid. Kriya, by shyness. Cha, also. Pavagya, understanding the attitude of the husband. Partu, of her husband, Lord Ramchandra. Sita, Mother Sita. Aharat, simply captivated. Manaha, the mind. Mother Sita was very submissive, faithful, shy, and chaste, always understanding the attitude of her husband. Thus, by her character and her love and service, she completely attracted the mind of the Lord. Purport. As Lord Ramchandra is the ideal husband, Ekapatni Vrata, Mother Sita is the ideal wife. Such a combination makes family life very happy. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tattade vetaro janaha. Whatever example a great man sets, common people follow. If the kings, the leaders, and the brahmanas, the teachers, would set the examples we receive from Vedic literature, the entire world would be heaven. Indeed, there would no longer be hellish conditions within this material world. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 9th canto, 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Pastimes of the Supreme Lord, Ramchandra. Om Jnana Timidantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dati Shapatantikam Pandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Guruna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchako Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Premna Anuvritya Shilena Prashraya Vanata Sati Piya Shriya Chabhavagya Bhartu Sita Haran Manaha. As Lord Ramchandra set the example of an ideal king and an ideal husband, Sita Devi set the example of the ideal queen and ideal wife. The characteristics of Sita Devi are quite different from those that are idealized today. Now we expect women to be assertive, to be tough, to be independent, to be in so many ways very different from what we find in the character of Sita Devi. And if a woman follows in the footsteps of Sita Devi, practically she's disparaged. You're just a slave, you're this, that, and the other thing. Poor thing. But this is the Vedic ideal. Premna anuvritya Shilena. Her character was like this. First, premna. There was love. There's a natural tendency in women, especially, to be loving, to be affectionate. You'll see with children, for example, that it's the women who are more affectionate, more full of affection, full of love for children. I'm on an airline flight, and there's some little child, and all the women flight attendants are oohing and eyeing over the child and playing with the child, and the men among the flight attendants are just sort of rolling their eyes and not interested. So that tendency to be affectionate is natural. And that for Sati, a chaste woman, that affection is directed toward the husband, toward the parents, toward the children, and especially for a married woman, to the husband. There should be natural love and affection. And anuvritti means serving, and it means following. We find, for example, in that Devahuti, although the daughter of the king, when married to the great sage Kardama, followed his way of life. She didn't demand that he set up some sort of royal comforts for her in the forest. I've married a sage, a Brahmin, so I'm going to follow his way of life and serve him. If I'd married a Kshatriya, I would have served him as Draupadi served the Pandavas. But I'll serve my sage husband. Anuvritti also means occupation. So anuvritya, assisting the husband in his work, assisting in his business, serving. And prashraya avanata, very submissive. And avanata means like bowing down, always wanting to serve, to satisfy, to conform to the desires of the person that we're trying to serve. The disciple tries to satisfy the spiritual master. He doesn't say, here's what I want to do, and I hope that you're on board with it. I hope you'll be happy with it. No, what do you, he tries to detect, what is it that the spiritual master wants? Prabhupada, I could see that my spiritual master was very keen to publish books. So Prabhupada took that up, that he published books. So seeing the mood of the spiritual master or the husband. Bhya, Priya. Pia means afraid, not exactly fearful, but what's the word? As we're fearful of the spiritual master, we don't want to do anything that would offend him or anything that would make him unhappy. I'm sure there's a word for that. It's not fear. Yeah. Hmm? Cautious, yeah, cautious is good. Right. Cautious, yeah, we're very careful, cautious, not to make him unhappy. So, and Shriya means shy. Shri means shy. That's, and Prabhupada said, a natural ornament of a woman. Now, again, that's taken as some sort of problem. If a woman is shy, it's like somehow or other we have to get her out of that, because it's going to be, you know, how will she make it in the world if she's shy? But we see that that's a natural. Little girls are typically shy of strangers and shy. So shyness, not brashness, putting oneself forward. Here's what I think. You want to know how come no one's asked me what I think? Well, I'm going to tell you. No, very shy, meek. And bhavagya. Bhava means the mood, the attitude. Bhava. Gya, knowing the mood of the husband, knowing the, yes, the mentality, the attitude of the husband, not having to be told, I want this, I want that, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, but detecting it, knowing. When we love someone, when we want to satisfy someone, then we tune in. What is it that's going on? Is he disturbed by something? Is he happy about something? Is he need something? Always attentive and understanding. Bhavagya. Part two, their husband. Sita, Mother Sita. Aharatmanaha. By all of these features of her character, she captivated the mind of Lord Ramchandra. She captivated the mind of Lord Ramchandra. This is nature's arrangement that male and female are matched. So a man wants to dominate, he wants to be in charge, he wants to give happiness and protection and provide what's needed. And the female naturally wants to be protected, to be cherished, to be taken care of, to be provided for. These are natural characteristics, male and female characteristics. So when we live accordingly, then there's happiness. If the wife wants to be in charge, happiness will be affected adversely. If the wife wants to be combative, if the wife wants her way, then family life becomes unpleasant. And that doesn't work in the favor of anyone. Then the husband is dissatisfied, the wife is dissatisfied, the children are affected also. And then sometimes there's separation, divorce, and then there's serious disruption. So going against these natural characteristics means going against nature. And going against nature is unwise. It doesn't lead to happiness. So these things are also, as exemplified by Mother Sita, are enjoined in Shastra also. If we look in seventh canto, 11th chapter, where the characteristics of Varnashram are being discussed, we find that there's description of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, their duties, and also the right duties and occupation for women. 7, 11, 25, and moving on from there. And it basically is repeating the same and elaborating on the same things that we find exemplified in the character of Mother Sita. And what was the result? Aharat Manaha, she captivated her husband. On the one side, the woman is like taking the submissive position, and she's adapting herself to the mood of the husband. She's the subordinate. On the other hand, she controls the husband's mind. She controls the husband's mind. The mind of the husband becomes totally captivated by such a faithful wife. That's also nature's arrangement. When the wife is submissive and subordinate and dependent, then the husband feels that I have to protect this woman, I have to make her happy, I have to provide for her. That natural, and he becomes attracted. Such a faithful wife, such a submissive wife, where could I get such a wife? He becomes captivated. Oh, my wife is so nice. The spiritual master also, Bruyu Snigdhasya Shishasya, Guruve Gurumapyuta. The Naimisharanya sages said that the Sutta Goswami, your spiritual masters have reserved for you all the secrets that are kept for a submissive disciple. Snigdhasya Shishasya. Snigdha means very submissive, same mood. When the disciple is submissive and always attentive and wanting to please the spiritual master becomes pleased. Oh, such a nice disciple. So then he wants to give him mercy, disclose everything to him. And if the disciple is insubordinate and challenging and independent and so on, the spiritual master think, what can I do? I try to help him as far as possible, but it's very difficult. What can I do? Like a disciple, the wife should be very affectionate to the husband, have an attitude of service, want to please the husband, and the husband's mind becomes captivated. Such a wonderful wife. Then, as Prabhupada says, family life becomes very happy. Not the broken, damaged, miserable family life, which is so often found in Kali Yuga. So that's one feature of this verse. And the other feature is that these are the dealings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these features of service and shyness and love and so on were not just manifestations of a woman toward a man, but these are ecstatic loving exchanges manifest by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pleasure potency. These are not the ordinary dealings of the men and women of this world. In this world, even the ideal combination is temporary. I love my wife so much, but she dies or I die. I get old, she gets old, or other things happen. So it's even the ideal situation is illusory in the sense that it doesn't last. And it's only effective to a certain extent. No wife can fully satisfy the husband. No husband can fully provide for or protect the wife. Everything is as far as possible. And each has their own separate interests. As much as the wife loves the husband, she's got something else. She's ultimately selfish. And as much as the husband cares for the wife, he's ultimately selfish. So it is the material world. But when we act in accordance with nature and in accordance with Shastra, then the material world becomes, at least the heavenly part of the material world. The earth becomes something like heaven. Heaven is also temporary, but it's a lot more pleasing than this present hellish state of affairs. So that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is that we're seeing the perfect exchanges of devotional ecstasy between the Lord and his pleasure potency. That's really what's going on here. The separation that Lord Ramchandra feels, the prowess that he shows, the affection that he shows, these are all manifestations of transcendental potency. Krishna's, yes, the Lord's dealings with his on the spiritual platform. So Lord Ramchandra is captivated by his potency. Krishna is captivated by his potency. Srimati Radharani. Therefore, bhaktya mam abhijanati. I'll only be satisfied by pure devotional service, because pure devotional service is a manifestation of the pleasure potency. That's what captivates the mind. The Lord's mind is not captivated by our skills, our assets, our talents. It's not a big deal. He has more wealth, more beauty, more everything. But it's the love that attracts the Lord. Bhaktya, because it's a manifestation of his pleasure potency. So that's the essence of what's being seen. And it's reflected in the material world, in the ideal relationship of a chaste wife and a dutiful husband. That's also the other side of it. It's women are supposed to be chaste and shy and affectionate, but then the husband should also be responsible and Krishna conscious. It's not that he can be a jerk, that he can be a lowlife, that he can be a woman hunter, meat eater, a drunkard, pot smoker, and and then be demanding, why is my wife not chaste? Why is she not submissive? Why is she? No. In Bhagavatam, the wife should faithfully serve a husband who's not fallen. So the husband should be Krishna conscious, and the wife should be faithful to the husband. And then this combination is ideal for spiritual progress and material happiness. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Maharaj, can you hear me okay?
I can. Oh, I see. It's Adi. Hare Krishna. But now you're muted.
The fantastic description you're giving of the dynamic of a submissive, obedient wife who wants to please the husband. Your description has potency because we see how delighted you are to serve Srila Prabhupada. You didn't feel crushed or coerced or, somehow or other imposed upon, but you're satisfied in devotional service. We're appreciating.
I think all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples feel that way. I think all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, faithful disciples, feel that way. Thank you.
It's not oppression.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
this is Gail.
Hey,
Yeah, I was wondering if you would elaborate on the quality of a submissive wife, because when we hear that word, normally we think of someone who doesn't speak up about her own desires and just, suppresses her desires in favor of that of the husband. So what place is there for a submissive wife to express her individuality in a marriage?
well, okay, we think of submission as sort of repressing our own desire. Yes, as a disciple, I may want this, or I may want to go to Chicago, but my spiritual master wants London. So why should I speak? No, Swami Prabhupada, I want to go to Chicago. I may, but ideally, well, Srila Prabhupada, if you want me to go to London, I'll go to London. You want me to go to hell, I'll go to hell. Why? Because what you want is more important than what I want. Because you're the master and I'm the servant. If the master gives us an order or a request, it's not my business to say, but master, I would like to do this. I would like to do that. No, yes, sir, whatever you want, or the boss, in say a courtroom, there's the judge and the clerk. So if the judge tells the clerk do this, the clerk says, well, Your Honor, I'd really like to do that. Something else. So that's not wanted. Now, there may be occasions where the servant speaks up, but it's more for this, what will be good for the master, not what I want. Hanuman, he advises Ramchandra when Ramchandra is looking for advice. Or who was it? The charioteer who took Pradumna off the battlefield. Pradumna was angry. What am I doing way over here when the battle's going on? No, sir, it was my duty. You were knocked unconscious, and as your charioteer, I had to protect you. So the disciple may speak up, but that's the expression of the individuality. Why do we honor someone like Prabhupada, someone like Madhavendra Puri, some great acharyas? It's because they express their individuality by serving their spiritual master. Not because we saw how expert they were in getting what they wanted, even though they were disciples. That's not what we look up to them for. We look up to them because they express their individuality perfectly by service. You look at Hanuman, the way he serves is completely different from the way Sita Devi serves Lord Ramchandra. Let's speak about individuality. Hanuman's in one world and Sita Devi is in another world in terms of what their character is like. But they're both expressing unalloyed devotion to Lord Ramchandra. The Hanuman is wandering through the palace of Ravana on his visit to Lanka and sees all these, sort of disheveled and half drunk and presumably very gorgeous women. But he doesn't think, well, a little side trip here, no one will know. He doesn't want to be distracted. My business is to serve Lord Ramchandra. That's for the perfection. And then, it's described, the woman keeps this is again, 7th canto, the woman keeps the home very pleasant. The woman satisfies the husband by cooking nicely and by affection. So there's lots of room for individuality there. That's and that's like gone. Modern society, it's almost not seen. But in even traditional American society and in other traditional cultures, that was the way that a woman, that was what a woman was admired for, how she expressed her individuality by keeping the home so nice, by keeping the husband so happy, by dressing nicely, by taking care of the children so nicely. That's all individual, it's all, but it's not this, what Prabhupada called puffed up conception of womanhood, where the wife is competing with the husband, or independently has her own agenda and so on. That doesn't, that gives you a 50% divorce rate and higher. And the husbands, the lousy, irresponsible husbands, of course, contribute to the same statistics.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was about to bring up. That it gets a little complicated if the master that you're serving is not very qualified.
Still, Prabhupada gave the example of his own sister, who served her husband faithfully, even though he had serious flaws in his character. He would go out carousing or whatever. And she would never say, oh, my husband's, doing this, he's doing that. No, my husband's out of home at the moment. She was such a faithful wife that the husband became submissive to her. She conquered the mind of her husband. So and of course, it doesn't mean that the wife should be abused and used as a machine for sense gratification. That's not the point. But even if everyone has some flaw, everyone has some flaw. You look for our husband is not going to be Lord Ramchandra, not in this life. We'll have someone a little bit less. So there'll be faults. We're all conditioned souls. The husband will also have flaws, but we tolerate. The wife will have her own flaws also, and the husband will tolerate. So it's not that, but in the modern stuff, we look for excuses. He's this, he's that, he's this, he's that, he said this, he did that. And we're, almost looking for excuses to jump ship, or to at least, sort of, as in a law court, look for some advantage by which we can get the upper hand. That kind of mentality won't make us happy. Nasa siddhim avapnoti sukham. All right, my husband has some faults. My boss has, you're working. Does everybody say, well, my boss, he looked at me cross-eyed, so I'm out of here? Yeah, your boss tries to rape you, that's a different thing. But just that the boss is, sometimes irritable, or that he's this or that. No, he's the boss. And I'm the employee, so I try to make the boss happy, and that's how it works. Not that I'm always looking for something to fight with him over. So
I guess the tricky part is, which flaws because some flaws it seems like, shouldn't be, I guess, so condoned, even though we all have our flaws, but, there are different degrees of flaws. So I guess it becomes a little tricky which ones you have to, kind of, how to navigate the situation.
Well, the summary is that if it's not extreme, we should tolerate it. Fallen, mm-hmm. That's quite serious. Hare Krishna Arjuna. Fallen is quite serious. Irritable is one thing, fallen is another. So, if we're sort of approaching fallen territory, then it starts to be, we have to, is this come to the point of fallen or not? But, we have to come to that point, not that it's just I'm dissatisfied, or I wish he were more like this, I wish he were more like that.
Mhm.
That doesn't, that's a different story.
Right. There's a sense. Oh well, something.
Yes.
Mother Gandhari is a classic example of the most extremely submissive wife. She covered her eyes because her husband was blind, you know?
Yeah.
And I was always grappling with that. Well, why was she listening to this guy who was against Krishna? But then we can be consoled to understand that Krishna is working. How wonderful is Krishna? He's working in everyone's life. And you can see she remained faithful to Dhritarashtra, and then after all the battle and everything, then Dura spoke to him, and he took up some sadhana and some spiritual direction, and she walked into the funeral pyre when he left his body, and she received the benefit of his spiritual advancement because Krishna brought him all the way 180 degrees around to the point where he changed. But she stayed with him, even though he was completely, actually demoniacally oriented in one sense.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, suppose you have a spouse who's fallen, who's crazy, who's not religious. And it says, you should stay with them as long as they don't prevent you from doing your spiritual practice, with the hope that you might influence them in a good way and bring them to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, good. There's a mantra with, I believe, the names of 8 chaste women. So Gandhari, Sita, Draupadi, Mandodari, like that, who are remembered by chaste women. Someone else? We have 3 minutes left. Oh, I see there's a chat box question. What should a chaste wife do if the husband is indeed wayward and incorrigible, drunkard, addict, abuser, etc.? Is there a point where a wife can say enough is enough and leave? Yes, there is. Srila Prabhupada speaks about that in the 7th canto. Let's see. Maybe I could find it for you. If her husband is fallen, a chaste woman is not meant to serve a fallen husband. If her husband is fallen, it is recommended that she give up his association. Giving up the association of her husband does not mean, however, that a woman should marry again and thus indulge in prostitution. If a chaste woman unfortunately marries a husband who has fallen, she should live separately from him. Similarly, a husband can separate himself from a woman who is not chaste, according to the description of the Shastra. So that's your answer. If the husband has fallen, then the woman may separate herself from him. She may live with her father, or she may in some other way live with her children if they're grown, separate herself, but not that she bounces from man to man. And she may wait again, that he may come to the point.
We make that decision on our own, or do we ask the spiritual master or pray, or do you just try to figure it out? Because the criteria for when to cut bait, and
Yeah, one should be properly guided and advised. These things are not done whimsically.
Yeah.
There's serious consequences, especially when there are children, for split ups in marriages, when it's taken as a very easy thing, that as soon as I'm dissatisfied, then I dump my wife, or I reject my husband. That sort of approach creates all sorts of problems for the husband, for the wife, for the children. I saw an article I'm going to go over for just a minute. there was an article in some mainstream publication, some women, college women, comparing sort of two generations of college women, and the previous, going back some years, there'd be some discussion, and the woman would say something like, well, Jack and I have we divorced. And her friend would say, well, Sally, good for you. That guy was a drip. You're finally, you have a life for yourself. Good going. And it was standard, sister, it's great that you're standing up for yourself. And then like a generation later, Jack and I are getting divorced. It's like, Sally, are you sure about that? Have you really thought this through? Has it really come to that? Why? Because the friend who's advising her is the daughter of a divorced couple.
Mm.
So they've, when the parents divorce for their own selfish reasons, then the impact on the children is severe. It is substantial. And, we may say, well, she'll get over it. He'll get over it. Because that suits our own agendas. But it's traumatic for children. So therefore tolerate. The husband should be responsible. The husband should also be, all right, this is what I got. Maybe another wife would have been more to my liking, but this is what I got. Let me be satisfied. And similarly, the wife, let me make my husband happy. Let me serve faithfully. And, it's only one life anyway. Let me act according to my duty. Let me accept my natural position and make the best of it in Krishna consciousness. Finally, the only person who's really going to make me happy is Krishna. So let me satisfy Krishna. But Krishna is, by serving my husband, I'm serving Krishna. That vision should be there.
We had one devotee girl. She came.
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off, Adi, because
Okay, go ahead.
and forgive me, because I went over. I've gone over time already,
Yeah.
and I don't want to go more over time.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
You want me to leave her out? The one that girl?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So the